you talked about it where we've talked before, where like injuries, obviously plays in the game, all those types of things. Those things come back to haunt you, and then again, we look at all the stuff the athletes are going through that people don't see. So when we
Yeah,
look at like gutting through practices and all the injuries
yeah.
that happen and all that kind of just like now, kind of being as a coach and seeing it, how do you kind of like coach new guys ahead to being like, okay, if they're dealing with injuries or they're dealing with these things, like what are the kind of tactics you take from your own experiences to build off that?
So that's my biggest thing. So my career ended with injury, right? I had cartilage, basically arthritis in my left knee, and it was just a wrap. I did everything: the stem cells injection, platelet-rich plasma, prolotherapy. I injected everything into that knee, and nothing was working. So when it comes to injury, a lot of injuries, especially when it comes to the joint, are preventable, and there's a lot of things you can do if you address it in time. What happens in football is that because pain is such a large component of the sport, it becomes normalized, and we don't differentiate between pain that just, is this going to happen, and actual pain that's going to result in something more serious. And what I tell the athletes is like, hey, you're gonna have a muscle, pain in your muscle is going to happen here and there. Soreness is one thing, but whenever you have pain in your joints, right, there's never a scenario where that's okay. That's just not the way the body works, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you have something like that, you have to handle that aggressively. And the ones that take heed to that, they make the adjustments necessary. But the ones that don't, you see them limp for a long time. And that's the biggest thing I think about when it comes to like the idea of availability. Like the best ability is availability, right? That's what they say. But availability isn't if you are in the game or if you're injured and out of the game. To me, availability is, are you in the game and are you the best version of yourself? Void of, turf toe, plantar fasciitis, chondromalacia patella, tendinosis, so on and so forth. Because it's at that moment where you can really, maximize your potential. But there's a lot of athletes out there that are just drugged up on painkillers and, they numb up the area to get you out there to play. And that's a dangerous game to play. And one thing that I don't tell the athletes when I was coaching, because I didn't want to be enemy of the state, is that but I tried to still illustrate this point, was the athletic trainers, their job is not necessarily to heal you. And I don't want to be, controversial or take a shot at athletic trainers. But in my opinion, the way I view it, their job is not to heal you. Their job is to get you back on the field, to get you back in a competition. Healing, getting back in competition, two completely different things, right? The first rule of healing is to stop the offending activity. Right? If your sport is an offending activity, you're in a weird position, right? So from an athletic trainer perspective, they have to do what they have to do to get you back on the field. And that's where you see all the numbing agents. That's where you see all the different types of pills and braces and different things like that they put on the athletes to get them back in the competition. And I try to tell the players that, hey, it's your responsibility. Like, yes, they'll do this and that, but it's really up to you to get you back on the field because, and get you back to your best version of yourself as well. Because if you just think that this ultrasound is going to heal your knee, don't work like that. Sorry to break it.
I feel like an example from basketball, like the NBA Finals a couple of years ago when Kevin Durant came back. He had he had Achilles issues.
Exactly.
I think that might have been a perfect example of what you're mentioning. There's a difference between, hey, we're gonna heal you and fix that injury, and we're gonna get you back on the court or get you back on the field. And I think that's maybe an example of maybe too much too soon, because
exactly. And it's not hard to make an athlete feel good. They got some pills for your ass. Like I'm talking about, you go into the athletic trainers, they pull that drawer open, and it's just options, like things you ain't never seen before. And I remember even when I was when I was with Winnipeg, and they had a needle this long, it felt like it was this long, and they was injecting that thing into my toe to get me in the game, and it was just like they got some options to get you to play and to get you to perform for that 2 to 3 hour period. But the ramifications of that can last a lot longer. So, I try to make sure these athletes they approach it in as professional of a way as they can in their 18, 19-year-old mind, right? So we're just trying to instill little habits and little bits of perspective that hopefully will pay off later.
Yeah. I think there's also definitely a difference between and I think you would agree with this, there's being hurt, because everybody who's playing football, they're playing a sport, they're beating up their body. Everybody's hurt to a certain extent, and then there's hurt, and then there's injured.
Yeah, exactly.
there's definitely a line between those two things. So it's like if you have turf toe or you have like, you know, knee ligament issues, like that's an injury and that you need to address that. There's hurt and your body's sore and it's like, you know, there's recovery modalities for that, but like there's no needles in the world that'll help you with, you know, working through like an ACL tear or like a Achilles tear like Durant did in the NBA final. Like, there's nothing you can do about that.
That differentiation, that's a really big deal. The ones that get hip to it early enough are typically the ones that perform at the highest level, because everybody can perform well first 2 or 3 games of the season, but is that attrition after a couple games, you get beat up a little bit, whatever the case is, then that's when things start to add up. And when the demands of the sport requires everything to be functioning at a high level, like you cannot play full speed with a bad knee and expect the other joints not to try to make up for the lack of productivity for that knee, which means you have compensation in other areas, which can create, you know, some other issues. So for example, when my left knee had an issue, my, my right toe or the plantar fasciitis in my right foot started to pop up, right? And then after that then it shot across to my other foot. So just the compensation was just ping ponging across as the work was still getting done, but the amount of work that each joint can handle was far beyond what it was supposed to. So you had a joint that was only at 80%, that other 20% was now in my foot. So my foot was doing 120% of the work. And then once that one went, then it went to the other foot and so on and so forth. So you really want to, when it comes to joints, aggressively as possible, address that and get it up out of you.